Well, it's 12 o'clock on the dot, so we're going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful Memorial weekend. It was so beautiful out, most days anyway, so hopefully you got out and enjoyed it or got some much-needed R&R. I want to thank you for being here with us today for our final Lunch and Learn of the season. I'm Nikki Vincent, the Executive Director of ACG Minnesota, the Association for Corporate Growth. We're focused on driving growth in the middle market. Locally, our almost 400 members meet monthly to discuss top-of-mind issues, hear from speakers on growth and M&A strategies, and most recently, issues related to the COVID-19. We're a global networking organization with over 15,000 members and over 90,000 investors, owners, operators, and deal makers in our network. So if you're interested in membership, please reach out to me. And if there's any new members on the line with us today, we want to welcome you. Our next new member luncheon is on Thursday, June 4th at noon. If you did not get your invitation to this, please reach out to me, as it is for new members only. Also, if you'd like to post on today's meeting, on today's Lunch and Learn, please use hashtag ACGMN lunch, L-U-N-C-H, ACGMN lunch. And before we begin, as always, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to our annual platinum sponsors, without whom we wouldn't do the programming that we do. They really support this organization, so we want to thank them. And when you think about doing business, think of the following firms along with all of our sponsors: Boulay, Bremer Bank, DataSite, CIBC, Highland Bank, Lathrop GPM, Lurie, Oxbow Industries, Quasar Capital Corporation, Redpath and Company, Taft, Trinet, Winthrop and Weinstein, Allied Executives, and our media partner, Twin City Business Magazine. Thank you to all of them. And just a few logistics before we get started. We want to remind everybody to please keep your audio and video off. If you're wearing headphones, you still need to mute yourself. If you have a question throughout the presentation, we ask that you put your question in the group chat. If you don't have a device that allows for the chat function, you can text your question to 612-242-6800. And then today's presentation and the audio clip will be made available on our website at acg.org/Minnesota within 24 hours. A big thank you to both Sara and Joe from Bremer Bank for being with us here today. And just a reminder to everybody, when the presentation is done, we're going to have the room open for about a half an hour to network. So if you're able to stick around, please do so. I know the speakers will stick around for a few minutes. And to introduce our speakers, I would like to bring in my programming chair and board member, Craig Ciro with Integrated Consulting Services. Craig, take it away.
Thank you, Nikki. Welcome, everybody, to our final Lunch and Learn here. We're looking forward to the presentation from Sue and Joe. Sara and Joe. I'd like to introduce Sara Larsen. Sara is the Vice President of Treasury Management. Sara's been working from home these days while spending more time cooking, taking long walks, and dreaming about our next beach vacation. Awesome. I'd also like to introduce you to Joe Chow. Joe is an amateur numismatist. He enjoys going to coin shows and seeing the large variety of coins from across the world. Silver, Morgan dollars, especially Carson City, are his favorites. So welcome, Sara and Joe, and we look forward to your presentation.
Great. Well, thanks for having us today. We appreciate the opportunity to get to speak to the group. And we have a brief presentation we want to go through. I think at this point in the game, we certainly don't think that we're going to reveal anything earth-shattering as far as all the webinars and all the webcasts that each of you are probably asked to be on every day. But we do think through our lens, we've been able to see a lot of different things over the past 8 to 12 weeks that hopefully you guys can have some takeaways from and something to think and talk about within your organization. So Nikki's helping us out with our presentation, so she doesn't mind advancing to, I think it's slide 3 technically, that shows the environment today. You've already seen Sara and I. So just wanted to cover, from Bremer Bank, We're about a $13 billion bank. We have close to 1,900 employees across Minnesota, North Dakota, Wisconsin. And I thought it'd at least be interesting for the group to hear a little bit about our move to work from home. I think we were fortunate in that our senior leadership team and our technology team had been focusing on the option to work remotely and not necessarily implemented it on a broad scale. But when things started to evolve and the situation got a little bit more clear in early March, the team made a decision to start moving people to work from home. And we were able to do so in a relatively quick fashion. I want to say 80 to 85% of our workforce was able to move very quickly to a work from home model. Now, that definitely came with its challenges. We are very relationship focused. And so for us to not be able to stop by a customer's office or drop in and say hi and get to know them as we learn their business was definitely a challenge. That's over the last 4 to 6 weeks, we've been able to adapt to that and taken more opportunities to meet with them remotely or virtually, like this Zoom meeting. But I think we still hear it from our clients. They still definitely want to meet in person when the time is right. So we look forward to that. But our move to work from home was pretty successful. As I was sharing with Nikki earlier too, we've had to balance out bandwidth. Video calls definitely eat up a lot of our network, so we need to be thoughtful about that. So new challenges that we had to work through that previously we never really thought about. Our customers' move to work from home was also something to navigate. Many of our customers were a little bit challenged in moving to that environment because there's still a lot of paper process. A lot of our businesses still run with 100% paper process that requires people to be in an office. It requires them to issue their payables process in the office. And so I think a lot of times our team, Sara included, and other Bremer people on the call today, suddenly got calls about questions on things that they had to think through a little bit and navigate in a different way. So it's been working through each customer scenario, helping them through the process. And that's a little bit about what Sara's going to talk about today on what that looks like. Obviously, with those challenges come some unique benefits. We definitely have seen some innovations from our customers on ways that they're working remotely, as well as internally. We've been able to develop some new processes, work through things. Definitely fraud is still top of mind. I think, unfortunately, many people have viewed this opportunity as a chance to take advantage of the situation. And knowing that people are working remotely, try to run some scams. The paycheck protection piece definitely saw a big uptick in scam emails with people saying that they are the SBA or that they qualify for PPP to click on a link. So definitely continue to caution each of you as you get emails to make sure that you understand the sender, know where it's coming from, and trust the source, because that is unfortunately a really easy way that they can get to you, your systems, and compromise a lot of your business very quickly. Did want to call out the impact of Paycheck Protection Program. I imagine most are familiar with the program, but at a high level, just wanted to share as that program got implemented, Bremer did participate as a bank. We're close to 7,000 applications that we've processed. And I share that not to talk about the program specifically, but rather some of the things that we had to do as we modified, because that program would have been a little bit smoother for us if we'd been able to sit in a meeting room and all talk through the challenges and the evolution of the program, but we weren't. So we really had to utilize chats. We definitely leveraged instant messaging, which something prior, I think, we had implemented about 2 years ago. It wasn't something we used a ton, but the Paycheck Protection Program and the nature of that program really pushed us to use the tools available, also to jump on conference calls rather quickly. So things like that I'm sure all of you are going through in your business or your working environment, that these tools were always available. Now the way we leverage them is more important than ever. And as we think about some of the things Sara will talk about, we really hope that you guys can take this as some takeaways to consider. We don't see this shifting even as we go back to some more openings and things like that. We see a lot of our customers asking for these digital services now more than ever. And once they get their arms around it, hopefully can take advantage of them going forward as well once we get back to not the new normal, the next normal, as we're trying to call it, because we don't know what the new normal is. So we're just calling it the next normal. So with that, I'll hand it off to Sara.
Thanks, Joe. Nikki, if you want to advance, that would be great. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. In my role as a Treasury Solutions consultant, my job is really to partner with businesses to implement secure, scalable solutions that really help to optimize with cash flow and improve daily operations. And as you can imagine, with workforce being home over the last 2 months, these calls are coming in. We're having many discussions with clients and prospects about different ways to operate. For many years, I've been hearing that businesses are striving to reduce paper. And although product offerings continue to evolve, there are 3 solutions that have been available for over a decade. And as a result of COVID-19, businesses moved to working from home, and they were also forced to consider alternative options to not only issuing checks, but also collecting checks. The increased interest in ways to operate efficiently from home has opened the door to solutions that I'm about to discuss. Again, these are solutions that have been around for some time, but again, have kind of revived and refreshed in kind of our stay at home. These solutions include ACH origination, integrated payables, and lockbox. You can advance to the next slide, please. ACH origination is one that's been around for a long time. A lot of businesses are utilizing it in many different ways, but it's basically a secure way to send and collect money electronically. And this really does help to improve cash flow, and it's substantially lower in cost than issuing a paper check or even collecting a paper check. It's easy to use, and so if you are unsophisticated, it's as simple as being able to create files or create templates and manage those in an online banking platform, all the way up to sophisticated options such as a direct transmission file. Some of the additional benefits are that it is really convenient. You no longer have to obtain signatures on any outgoing checks. And you also no longer need to collect those checks, be in the office, deposit those checks into the account. So basically, there are no more hassles of writing, mailing, receiving, and processing paper. It's very efficient, fewer incoming and outgoing checks to process. It's certainly timely, faster disbursement and collection of funds. Typically, ACH settles within 1 to 2 business days. Same-day ACH is also available, but oftentimes used for more emergency type scenarios, such as maybe a late vendor payment or an issue with payroll. We certainly wouldn't want employees not to get paid. And of course, it's safe. So check fraud continues to be on the rise. ACH reduces the risk of fraud and minimizes the chance of lost or stolen checks. I always say, every time you issue a check, you're advertising your routing and account number. And you think about each time you hand a check to potentially an employee as they walk out the door, or you drop a check in the mail, you really don't know how many hands that check touches before it actually is deposited into your account and cleared. Next slide, please. The other option is a more sophisticated payables solution. We call ours integrated payables. Again, it's more sophisticated, and it involves outsourcing your accounts payable. Each year there's an increase, as I've mentioned, in discussions with clients on how do I become more efficient, how do I reduce paper, and specifically the number of checks that are being issued. Since COVID-19, these discussions have escalated out of fear of employees working from home, not being able to obtain signatures on all outgoing checks. So the nice thing about the integrated payables platform is it is a web-based platform. It takes a single payment file. So whether you're issuing checks, you're issuing ACH, you're issuing a wire, or even a card payment, it's all within one file. Next slide, please. Some of the other benefits include streamlined payment processing. With the help of a vendor enrollment team, your current handwritten checks or individually printed checks are replaced with hopefully electronic generated payments. And this is one of the things that I do talk with clients about. They're very interested in moving those paper items, but they don't know how to do that. They don't have the staffing potentially or the time. to reach out to all of their vendors and redirect those payments. Reduce risk exposure. Payment processing is safe and secure, reducing the potential for fraud. So if you think about maintaining, all of that information, routing and account numbers in your system, all of that's a massive responsibility for you. The other benefit to this is that we automatically partner Positive Pay with your check file. So you automatically upload that file, we upload that file, and your items are matched against what's clearing the account. It's a fantastic way to eliminate or reduce check fraud. Improve tracking and reporting. You have instant access to the payment details. You'll also have ongoing electronic tracking, so it really makes auditing really easy and efficient. And then reduce time and expense. Costly hours and dollars are no longer required to print, prepare, post, and mail check payments. There's no doubt if you convert a check to an ACH, you're saving time and money. But the alternative is to potentially replace a check with a card payment. And in that case, oftentimes there's revenue share back to the organization. Next slide, please. The last solution that I wanted to discuss is regarding Lockbox. It's basically an easy way for you to manage your receivables. It's funny because for quite some time, it felt like there was a decline in Lockbox. And I would say over the last several months, or several years, I should say, there's been an increase again. However, in the last 2 months specifically, it has increased dramatically. So prior to COVID-19, many businesses received check payments at their office. My phone was ringing off the hook. How do I get those checks redirected to my home? Or how do I, get those check deposits into the bank? Basically, when the stay-at-home order was put in place, businesses were faced with how are they going to collect and then redirect those incoming checks? And then more importantly, how am I going to get these into the bank without extending the amount of time? There are many benefits to using a lockbox, whether there's a pandemic or situations where employees can't come to work. I always say a PO box never goes on vacation. It's always collecting payments every single day. It's imaging those payments and supporting documents, and it's making the deposit into your account. Some of the additional benefits include faster payment processing. Lockbox services are specifically designed to compress the amount of time a check is in the mail and ultimately deposited into the account. Items are collected in the early morning and deposits are made into the account every single day. Improved receivables management. Having a bank process payments on your behalf supports your audit controls, and it does improve accuracy for your data management. We have a lot of clients that are looking for ways to export and import into their system. There are a variety of different outputs available. Basic is viewing of images only, all the way up to a sophisticated option such as a data transmission file. That obviously could be imported directly into your accounting software. You always have access to online images and then the supporting documents, and they're always available within hours of us actually collecting them. And then accurate and timely information. One of the most beneficial aspects of a lockbox is that your business receives timely information on the receipt of your payments as the deposits are processed. Obviously, this gives you visibility to your cash flow. And I would just say as a takeaway, I think it's very meaningful to have regular discussions with your banking partners. Things are continuing to evolve in our world. I've been in this role for 20 years, and quite honestly, the last year or two, it has drastically changed. Clients are looking to improve systems. They're looking to improve efficiencies by adding solutions. And so you would want to be on the forefront of what's going on in the market, what is available to you, and then obviously make decisions based on what makes the most sense for your organization. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Joe to kind of wrap things up. And then, of course, if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer those as well. And
Yeah.
Nikki, I think we can move to the last slide.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, and as Sarah mentioned, 20-year career, the last 2 have probably been the most changed. The banking system and the way people do business is faster than ever. And if it's not with us, I know there's a lot of bankers on the call, definitely encourage you to take that time to build that relationship with your banker. Ask these questions, ask how things can be improved, because while we're not product specific, we wanted to call out some of the tools that you can use. And even if it's not one of these tools, there's definitely a lot of opportunities to continue to improve your process. The automation is great. It doesn't solve 100%. If it did, we wouldn't be here because then we'd say we have all the answers. The automation is a way to start building better processes. And I do think the current environment is having businesses start to look at things and say, how can we do things better? How can we enhance some processes that we maybe haven't looked at in a long time? Do we need to look at systems? ERPs and core accounting systems, definitely something that's easy to push to the back burner, and all of a sudden it's 30 years and you haven't done anything with it. It's a great time to take a look. And I know there's costs associated with all the things that we're talking about, but really got to do some detailed analysis to see if the benefit makes sense. Relationships are more important now than ever, even if it's over video or a conference call. Really encourage that. Something we learned throughout the process was we heard from a lot of customers and new customers to Bremer saying, I kind of took for granted these last few years that relationship with a banker. I took for granted that relationship with an accountant, a CPA. There's so many different partners in the marketplace, and I think Minnesota is really lucky to have the number of people that are willing to help, willing to jump in and help people navigate a lot of these challenges in the current environment. So definitely encourage you to reach out, build those connections. It's a great time, and I think now more than ever, people are starting to navigate what it looks like to call people. The first 4 weeks of this pandemic, we definitely took a step back and said, what do these calls look like? We don't want people to think that we're trying to bug them because they're navigating the crisis in their own business. And so now I think you'll start hearing from some of your partners that are feeling a little more comfortable to reach out and start navigating this together. So with that, we'll open it up for, I think, questions, if that's okay, as well as I know we wanted to do some networking too. So.
Yeah. Thanks for the presentation. One question I have is, do you also see more positive pay, people requesting positive pay for their transactions? And if you could kind of talk a little bit about how positive pay works, that'd be great.
Sure, I'd be happy to take that. I would say yes, absolutely. Fraud is on the rise, whether it's electronic or paper, and positive pay has become very common for businesses to utilize. One of the things that I typically will talk to clients about is how often are you logging into online banking? And more importantly, how often are you actually looking at the transactions posting to the account? If it is not every single day, then recommendation would be to utilize fraud management services. And positive pay is on the check issuing side. So each and every time you issue a check, you basically would either import that information into online banking or typically go in and manually enter that information in, so that when that check clears the account, we have the ability to match the criteria that you've provided us. If something doesn't match, then what typically happens is an exception is generated, and you have the opportunity during a decision window. Every bank is a little bit different, but basically opportunity to go in and view the front and back of the check so that you can make a pay or return decision on that particular item. So the benefit is huge in that you don't have to be looking at every single transaction every single day. You'll be notified if there is something that pops up that doesn't match. And of course, if it is fraud, then that item will be returned before it's actually posted to your account and the money's left the account. So huge benefit there. And then the alternative is ACH positive pay or an ACH fraud filter. Basically, it works very similarly in the sense that it's on electronic debits that are coming out of your account. So if you create a list in online banking of, those that are authorized to take money out, for instance, merchant provider, maybe payroll company, you create this list. And if something clears that is not on the list, again, you've got that exception window and then the decisioning tool for you to go in and make a pay or return decision. So again, the benefit to both is that it really does stop it from posting to the account if it is a fraudulent item.
Great. Thank you. What kind of fraud are you seeing now from like the PPP loan program? Have you seen any or have heard of any?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think it's just a general uptick in fraud attempts, Greg. Definitely a lot of people saw it as an opportunity where you've got a program that's developing fast and quickly, and people are really tied to their emails, as people know. And so I think fraudsters are definitely trying to take advantage of the fact that if you pull up the email and it says something that looks legitimate, and it might say PPP or paycheck protection, and it has a reference to a bank or an online application, there's a high likelihood that people will click that type of a link. To Sarah's point on positive pay, a lot of people, I think, initially balk at the service and say, well, I look at my account daily, and so there's really no chance for fraud. That's kind of what they're depending on, is that eventually you will miss a day or somebody will go on vacation and that process will break down. And so I think between SBA type emails where people are phishing and saying they're from the SBA or from the Treasury, people saying that they're from a bank or that they're calling to verify information on your PPP app, definitely people are trying to take and exploit those things where people are moving too fast, or they've got too many things they're trying to balance and they don't take that standard precaution that they normally would have, where they would have called their banker and said, is this legitimate? Or is this something that you guys authorized? Most banks, and it should, I'd like to be able to say all, will not call you to verify information. If they are, definitely ask questions as well and be really cautious about who you give that information to. Even if it seems a little benign and maybe harmless, ask why they're asking. And we always tell people it might seem like a bother that we're calling you to verify something. We're doing it for your protection as well as ours, because we want to make sure that you're safe and that people aren't taking advantage of your accounts. A lot of people, as you do Google searches, you can find enough information generally to figure out where people bank or what questions that you need to get through in order to access those types of accounts. So I know all the banking partners on the phone would probably agree. We're not trying to be annoying. We're trying to help. While I understand it can seem burdensome, it's ultimately trying to protect you and your money.
Thanks, Joe. Another question on ACHs. So I work with a number of clients and we do ACHs, and there's always a fear when I submit to make sure that it's going to go to the right account, or there's just this, you're just letting the money go. Can you talk about some of the safeguards in ACHing, relative to making sure that your money just doesn't go to the wrong account?
Absolutely. One of the things that I always recommend is, getting that authorization directly from who it is you're either, sending or collecting money from, but asking for a voided check so that you can actually verify that the routing number and account number, they're legible, you have access to that clear information. Additionally, a pre-note is highly recommended. We recommend that with all of our clients. You do a test for a penny just to make certain that there are no issues with that transfer and that transfer specifically into that specific account. So those are two things that you could be thinking about as you look to kind of expand more electronically. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. So, for example, I wired a relatively large sum, or it was actually through an EFT, I think, an ACH, and they say that they haven't received it yet. I think there's a tracer going on it. Can you kind of maybe explain to everyone how, if I wanted to trace where it went, kind of the process that goes through to that?
Sure. I don't know that I specifically have all the answers, but typically there is a trace associated with that. And from bank to bank, starting with the bank in which you originated that transaction, there should be a way for them to track that information down to see where it is in the process. And I know you had mentioned wire transfer, but then also ACH. So, you know, those processes work similarly. There's always a reference number associated with them. So there would be a way to actually track that, but it would most likely be done directly through the banks communicating.
Great, thanks. How about, we're going to kind of go back to the PPP thing. What about people that received PPP money that shouldn't have? Maybe they didn't qualify, but they got it anyway, and or they stabilized and they want to return it. Is there a process to get that money back to the SBA?
Yeah, so obviously bank by bank on how they're going to handle those types of requests and those processes. PPP is a continually evolving process, and you know the Treasury released some information around forgiveness, I think the Friday before, and then some additional information came out this weekend around the lender responsibilities. So my piece would be there. Definitely talk with your banker, talk with your CPA. That bank who originally helped you get that PPP loan will be a great guide to help navigate if either you're thinking about giving the money back or repaying it. The safe harbor provision where you can essentially just give the money back did expire, but there's definitely still options on paying off the note, changing the loan amount, things like that, and that's where it gets pretty technical. So want to make sure that people talk with their banker on their specific situation, really evaluate the rules. CPAs, attorneys, you know, there's definitely a lot of parties as you think about navigating some of those nuanced questions. The program tried to capture everything. I think the reality is with the volume that they experienced and the specifics that each business has and the nuances, that's where those advisors are really key to helping you start that process.
Have you heard much about the HEROES Act? Because I think there was some nonprofits that didn't qualify for the PPP. Are you familiar with any of the newer provisions coming, or even the extension of the forgiveness period?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is still either in Congress or being talked about. And so, you know, our approach too is until some of that actually comes out as either, we like the term interim final rulings or guidance, that's where it's tough to comment on it, because until those provisions pass or are specifically enacted, not much that you can do about it within the program.
Okay. Any other questions for those out there?
Not for me.
Okay, that's about it for us then, I think. So I appreciate passing on to Nikki.
Thank you, Craig. And you guys, I'm getting my camera here in just a second, but thank you, Sarah and Joe. That was a great presentation. Again, the audio clip and the PowerPoint will be made available on the ACG website within 24 hours. As a reminder, we are going to be breaking for the summer. There will be limited programming and some member-only networking events. But if you're interested in finding out more on what's coming, you can visit our events page at acg.org/Minnesota. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to leave the room open now for about a half an hour of networking. For those who want to and are able to stick around, I would say go ahead and turn your cameras on and feel free to unmute. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who spent the last half hour with us. We're looking forward to seeing you over the summer, but if not, we'll see you in September when we kick off our season, and we'll just give the folks who need to get out of here a minute or two to leave the room, and then we can get started with networking. So thanks again to Bremer Bank, to Sara and Joe for the presentation. Very timely indeed. And probably I'm at Wells Fargo, so I know having that cash, being able to process a check over my phone has been a lifesaver. So I do appreciate that and everything everyone's doing through the crisis. So with that, I'll let those of you who need to head out go ahead and get some bonus time to your day or stick around for networking. So thank you.